So that's we're going to put that in the paper next time, Taj. Both constitutions and bylaws right in the paper, so people can see for themselves, you know, the corruption. Even though you mentioned that in your article. So what I'm trying to do is not repeat what you said. I'm going over some things that you said, and that's what I'm trying to expand on. Because actually, you touch a lot of parts of my lesson. All right. So we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. This is in the section of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And Noble Ali said, "Come all ye Asiatics of North America and hear the truth about your nationality and birthright." Birthrights and inalienable rights are synonymous. Joe Ali understood these principles. And he also, as I said before, the Moorish Divine National Movement is for the Europeans as well. And that's is to force the Constitution, which has not been enforced. And as you said, Todd said earlier, you have a culpable government that is ruling, and that is called the U.S., and not to be confused with the United States spelled out. So understand, I was speaking to a brother earlier about the distinction and making it very clear. Because one of the comments was that the United States spelled out is colorable, and that is the United States. That is the de jure government. That is not colorable. The U.S. U.S. is colorable. And what I do oftentimes, when you'll see on the applications, is U.S. citizen. And what I do is I create a box, and I put citizen of the United States Republic, North America. And I check that box off. So the only time you see that, just be cognizant of that. You'll often see that U.S. citizen. All right? And so that's very important. Explaining, I'm going to break this down a little bit. On the questionnaire, Joe Ali has a woman, and humanity is written on her womb. And this symbolizes our economic lifeline. The Moorish Fez symbolizes our nativity, our Moorish nativity. The womb of woman, the navel, the umbilical cord, the placenta, 360 strings, 3 plus 6 plus 0 is 9. 9 cosmic moons that it took this form to manifest in my mother's womb. I am Mason because I am a son of a mother. I am Muslim because I am manifest man, muscles, tissues, and bones. Manifest in the womb of woman in 9 months, Muslim. All right? So we make it very clear that any man born of a woman is a Mason. And what they've done is take that and apply it only to those who are members of a lodge. So that's what makes you a Mason. So if you deny your nationality and your nativity, you have no rights to resources, and therefore you are property. And this is, as we said earlier, this is the problem that we're facing. Another point, just trying to see where you didn't touch, so I won't be repetitive. The 14th and 15th Amendments, which are unconstitutional. And I said we are part and parcel of their separate government. We are natural born citizens. And Noble Ali said that there's no need for 14th, 15th Amendment. And you mentioned here, and at the time, 1865, that the free national constitutional law that was in force since 1774 declared all men equal and free. That's a sodomy. That's the symbol, compass and square. Drew Ali implied a lot of things in here. So what I'm doing is trying to bring them out. He implied sodomy when he said here, equal and free, and if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since the constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th, 15th Amendment. That's the sodomy, which means iso, which is a Greek word, which means equal. Nom, which means law, equal rights, equal justice in a social society for all men. That's a sodomy. Drew Ali was a lawman. He was bringing us back into the law. And by bringing us back into the law, we're going to be commanding that the Europeans be brought back into the law. But however, we're not in the law. It's like, do you know offsetting penalty? Offsetting penalty in football is when an offensive player and defensive player commits a foul on the same play. That penalty is offsetting. So we're outside the law. We can't command the Europeans to be into the law. We must be into the law. All right? And this is what Drew Ali was doing, bringing us back into the law. And by being active all over the country, we are forcing the plebiscite, what was strengthened. Now, we emphasized earlier that and suggested to you not to overly emphasize filing suits, single suits, though we're going to be doing that. Why? Because as an individual, the sovereignty is weak, but as the collective, that's where the strength is. And if you're talking constitutional principles, you're talking the national sovereignty. You're not talking the individual sovereignty, you're talking the collective sovereignty, the collective agreement, the common law of the people. So Drew Ali was emphasizing the national sovereignty when he mentioned constitutional principles over and over and over again, all throughout this document. And this is said before, this is the heart of the movement. To not talk constitutional principles, you're not talking the national divine movement. You may be saying the word, but you're not talking it. All right? So to bring our people back into the constitutional fold of government is the purpose of the Moorish Divine National Movement. So when on Wednesdays when I work with you sometimes, these are some of the issues that I'll be bringing up more, going more in depth. All right, and tying this relationship and letting people know what is the Moorish National Divine Movement, and that is the Constitution, talking of constitutional principles, letting them know that it is a divine document. All right, so this is, anybody has any questions? We'll be filling questions now. I know one of the things, Taj, is that people who've been called me wanted you to discuss specifically how to file suits. I think that was one of the impressions that they had, yes, you know, when they came here. Yes. But I understand where you're going when you were talking fundamental principles, because without these fundamental principles, there's no way that they can have the knowledge of, yes, filing suits. All right, so can you briefly, you know, give a synopsis of, you know, filing suits?
Yes. You're going to file in a district court. Reason not, you deal with your general state courts, etc., you know they're callable. Fact of the matter is all the courts are callable now. But what you want to do, you want to file the suits mainly to start that paper trail, because it's an indicator to the world, not only to those in this said government, but in the world, that you're making effort to make the claim. One of the reasons that weakens us in our issues of regress is that most claims that are made by our people are made in the black codes. They either call themselves blacks, Negroes, colors, etc. It has no real power at law. They'll go through emotions with you, because that's not a human being. It doesn't exist. There's no constitution that backs such people. It's a fiction. That's a fiction made up by the European nations to distinguish, like say for instance, like if you have two people standing here, say they're from Misraim, we call Egypt. So you got, say, a brother and sister here, both Misraim, and so the sister, she still honors her mother and father. She's a Misraim, or Egyptian, right? There's a constitution that backs her up, recognized by the rest of the civilized world, and therefore automatically comes into both national and international law and protections. This brother over here, he's Misraim, but he comes dealing with us, he associates with us, so in order to win our favor, he starts calling himself black too, because he's relating to our bloodline, you understand, not understanding that that's not relative, because he thinks that black is relative to a pedigree, is relative to a classification, a code system that was created in 1779 to classify both uncivilized people and people that are outside of government or national governmental principles, who were usually what you call indentured servants or slaves that have not their mothers and their fathers' names, nor their mothers and fathers' inheritance. So therefore there's no law that backs them up, because they're property, they're a thing that's movable, it's called chattel. So these brands were created or coined to describe that being separate from a national being, so that they can travel in society. So you may have a free man or free woman here, and you may have a slave here, but how do you keep the conflict down? The free man has a nationality, the slave thinks he's a crayon. Very simple. Are we understanding? Are we following? And see, so it doesn't ring a bell, or it doesn't create an alarm. Do you understand? So it's like, so a free being, a free national being will come under constitutional law protections and international law protections, whereas a colored person, Negro, would come under programs that would be issued to them under privilege from the citizens for what you call temporary recognitions. You understand what I'm saying? It'd be called civil rights issues, which would come under the 13th, 14th Amendment, which is a fraud, which makes them automatically corporate property. And so their children, offspring, are all corporate property. Duali set in motion already those procedures for you to get back to your nationality by claiming them for the public record. That's called nationalization. Ultimately, we're going to have to nationalize this nation anyway in order to save it, but that's another issue. Brother Raheem was talking on those issues earlier. So, brother. Islam family.
Thank yourself and your son for all that knowledge you've been kicking from the round table, and it's stuck with me this year. For about a year and stuff, and I feel the spirit of the holy breath, and I'm high up on the square, and I feel good. Now, I learned a lot from them degrees that was given up at the round table. I don't talk that much, but I'm a Mason of high degrees before I learned about them degrees. Now, with the 101s and the Masonic doctrine, they tie in all together, because with the Masonic doctrine talks about is how the three ruffians, Jubilo, and Jubilum, slayed the master builder, which was of King Solomon's temple, which is Grand Master Harmabith. And the Moors, or what they did, Grand Master Harmabith, they took and buried him in a shallow grave in the west. And the Moors are the masters builders of civilization. They did that to the Moors and gave them the name Negro, Black, Coward, and Ethiopian. And they're buried in the shallow grave of the West. I just want to thank y'all again, because that knowledge is powerful. But the Circle 7 says the advantage of good things lie not in possession, but in knowing how to use them. So we must set our souls on fire with love and holy zeal one another, knowing that we've been through a great affliction here in the wilderness of North America, because a lot of our people is Christianized. They joined the Episcopalian, Pentecostal, Presbyterians of the British Army. So we got to go there and pull them back. When, like in the Masons, you grab your hand and shake the hand, right? Yeah. We got to go back and bring them the light.
Pull them up out the grave. Let me throw something out there for that point, because a lot of people don't understand what religion is. Particularly like if you try to pull a brother out of the grave because he's been what they call Christianized,
Right.
they feel threatened because they think Yeshua, or who they call Jesus, was a Christian.
Right.
But I'm going to read again. Remember what I mentioned to you, how the Europeans take pride in saying if you want to hide something from a nigger, just put it in a book. Well, let's go again, and this will also assist you when you're helping to raise some of our people, and they get very sensitive because they think you're attacking their religion, or they think you're doing something quote unquote against God because you're telling them to get out from it.
Right.
This is key. Now, how many of you are familiar with the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed? Anyone raise your hand? Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed. There's one. Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed. Look at the numbers of people in here, and look how many people are not familiar with that. Now take what I'm getting ready to tell you to heart, because this is a key teaching tool to redeem people, all right, from the sorcerers. They don't know that is the work of sorcerers. This work is to counter the sorcerers, but you must know it in order to counter it, all right? How many people over here have ever been to a church? Most of us have. We're quite familiar with it because we've been pretty much dominated, all right? Now let's go to, the European is so proud of himself, and I don't blame him because he is the Negro God. So let's go into ordinary dictionary with the synopsis. And you know what a synopsis is? A brief, right? So they will give you information in a brief that's indisputable, yet the people who have become believers and followers will dispute you. So let me go to their own literature. All right? Now we'll read this out and use this in the future. How many of you are familiar with Nicaea? Now I'm going to read this. This is in an ordinary dictionary, and this is a brief. Listen carefully. Nicene Creed, a Christian confession of faith adopted against the Arian heresy by the First Council of Nicaea, A.D. 325. What does that mean? 325 years after the assassination of Yeshua, who they branded Jesus during this council. Because his name wasn't Jesus, it was Yeshua ben Yosef. A similar creed later attributed to the Council of Constantinople, A.D. 381, and accepted by the Greek Church, also called Constantinopolitan and Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed, a modification of this containing a clause referring to the Holy Spirit, adopted by the Council of Toledo, A.D. 589, and accepted by the Anglican, Roman Catholic, and various Protestant churches. That is the foundation of what is known today as the Christian Creed. That's the foot of it. That's the rock of it. That's the foundation of it. How many people call themselves Christian don't even know the foundation upon which it is built? They're going to tell you about Jesus. So don't argue with them. Give them their own record. That is not their own. That they have adopted from the Romans who murdered him. Do you understand where I'm coming from? In other words, they worship the murderers of the Nazarene and then claim to love the Nazarene. And the Nazarene brought the zodiac and the fish. They hung him on a cross and then told him that the instrument used to lynch him was the instrument he brought from heaven in a cloud of glory. They are liars, they're hypocrites, there's no truth in them, and when they speak a lie, they speak of their own father. It is not their creed. Jesus was a Moabite, and his grandmother Ruth was a Moabite, and Boaz was a Moabite. So what can you be but Moabite? More. So use it. That's a weapon against those who try to get into the religious game and try to fight you there because they don't want to deal with the truth because it shakes the world. They don't have a foundation. It's a lie. Doesn't mean that there's no good in it. Don't misunderstand that. And it's not an attack on them. It means that if you're going to claim something, know what you're claiming. And so if I claim to be Christian, I should know the Nicene Creed. And if you don't know it, you don't know nothing about it. It's sort of like, say I'm a surgeon. I operate on brains. You notice I have the sign out here. Come on in. And then you come, they drag you out the back door, walking like this. Well, if you ain't figured out yet that I can't be who I claim to be by my own works, then what else proof do you need? All you need is watch the works of the people. They show you the love. Is there love? No. There's hatred. There's slavery. There's abuse of power. And if Yahshua walked in this door now, they'd lynch him again. Thank you very much. So the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed is Christianity. They are not Christians. They can't be Christians. It's a political system disguised as religion in order to push it on the world to conquer. And they will have a cross and a crown. And it says, in hoc signo vinces, which means in this sign we conquer. They don't hide it. But why should they? Because all we deal with is beliefs. We don't deal with facts. It's against our gods. Please. Let's save our babies.
I'd like to know where I could get that. If you can write that down for me so I can get a copy.
Just go right in the dictionary, look on the Nicene Creed, go in the law library, go to any library, any well-stocked library, look up Nicene Creed. That's all you need to do the research. They'll tell you so much about the history. It ain't nothing but a trail of blood, I'm telling you.
1 second. 1 second, I see. What I had to say, this is real quick. What you're saying about people, getting in conversation with them.
Yeah. Don't argue with them.
I've groomed myself where that I don't even deal with them. When I revive, I come around Moors.
Yes. But I'm saying no.
When Moses.
Suggestion. We don't ever want to get into the thing where Moors, Great Seal Moors, Moors who deal with the law, don't deal with we's and them's in that context that's often used.
Right.
We're just as friendly to Europeans as we are to Asiatics. There's a lot of Europeans that's doing more to help fix this thing than a lot of Asiatics. Do you understand? It is the spirit that you're dealing with. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Principle. But I'm saying to you, relative to our people, because we have to be redeemed, because we fell the farthest. In other words, when Drew Ali brought this message to the people of the North Gate, he came to all the people. He just came directly amongst us because we needed him the most. That does not constitute us in any particular superiority role, because the movement is universal. That's so that Moors don't get arrogant and self-righteous, also think they own the prophet. You understand? Just because he's Moorish American. He came to the people. The Europeans are Muslim sons. When you go in Washington and you see the Knights of Columbus with our feathers on, Islam, that's why I did this article, excerpt from before. This was really directed to a lot of so-called Muslims, truthfully, to be honest with you. As well as to the Europeans, let them know that we know what's up. We ain't out to lunch, and we're not spooked up. That they have an obligation to uphold the law, and we are the law. This is for Moors who have the misconcept that think this is some little pocket thing that is just us, because you see just a few people that are active, think that the world ain't aware of what's going on. It's just that most of the people are asleep. Many of them are asleep willingly. Do you understand? But your public suit is your activity. When the repression of your rights are affected by the corporate entities faking as government, then you do the process suit. However, it must be in propria persona. Keys. I'm going to drop this at you, but remember the Nicene Council. And that knocks all dispute out of the way. All right, that's N-I-C-E-N-E. And it's also spelled Nicaea with the E-A. And the council. And although they had about 7 councils, there's 2 major councils that they make reference to in history. Ecclesiastically, historically, lawfully, canon law, etc. and that is the 325 and usually the 381. These are the two principles. This is when they composed up the creed that you know today as Christianity. You understand? Now what they did during that period of time is they was altering the documents and the scripts that they robbed from Luxor. That's the great Moabite library on the north coast of Tamari that they call in Egypt right now, or Alexandria, that they named after Alexander the Great, who was also fighting the Moors. You understand? So Alexandria in Misraim, that you call Egypt now, of the ancient Moabite kingdom or empires, because it spanned the seas, is Luxor. The world's greatest library was situated there. Not just there, but also here in Toledo, in Ohio, here on this side. And they burned them. And they have a rule in government and in the church, and it's called Indexus Prohibitorum. As a matter of fact, that's even in the dictionary. You want to hear what it says? Now look at this. I'm showing you again how an ordinary unabridged dictionary can educate you. But the only thing that blocks you is our emotions, our beliefs, our deication, where we don't want to deal with reality. All right? Now remember that. Now this is Indexus Prohibitorum. These are fundamental things that you must understand, because when you walk into those courtrooms, don't think that it's not used, because the judges are in the concept of this information. This is not what's proceeding across the floor, but he is in the mental concept of it. When he puts on that robe, that cloak, you know what that cloak represents? Huh? It represents the authority of the sovereign. It represents the cloak of the Moors, the Abba. Just like when you put your bolero on, your boleros and your vest and your cloak and your Moorish costume, that's what it represents, the authority. Same thing with the cloaks they put in the church when they sing gospel songs. Belong to you. Same robe that the Ku Klux Klan wears when he puts on a conical hat and doesn't terrorize you with your costume from your ancient white brotherhood that's over 50,000 years old. And you be going out to lunch. And it belongs to you. Scaring you with your own stuff. So raw. Now let's go into, here you go. Remember, this is related. It may not seem to be, but remember, when you're suing, the concepts that you have in your mind are at the root of whether you walk or not. At the root of whether or not you are successful. And keep this in mind. The ultimate key to the conclusion or the superior position of the plaintiff in a suit is what? Constitutional principles. That's the ultimate test. You know, someone may acquiesce or give up early and lose, and they know they're right. Why do you think states try to keep things from hitting the Supreme Court, which is the only law, the only true court? Because they know they can't beat you. But they know they ain't going to go there because you're usually arguing wrong. You're usually arguing in a false jurisdiction, never challenge the jurisdiction, right? You keep calling a magistrate a judge when you ain't checked the record. And so what they get you to agree to fraud along the way, then they got you in the state's court and they just bounce you around till you're economically broke. See it? And then you start arguing how you feel, or just some case law which the attorney will try to lead you to, when you should be talking constitutional principles and stay there. You know, any what you call lawyer, they're phonies, worth their salt. You know, they bounce you around, take your lunch money, take your savings, then get your grandma's money, and then when they see you ain't got no more, they either throw you to the dogs or how much you can pay. You understand the nights. You bought your freedom. You ain't bought freedom. You bought the privilege, and then you so-called win. And then you ever notice, if you really pay attention, when they really get tired of the BS and they want to win the case, they start arguing constitutional principles? And the case either is resolved and that's it? Why don't they go there in the first place? Because they can't make money off you. Because you don't need them. You should have went there yourself. Because the Constitution is for all free national beings. But in order to use it, you must be in propria personis juris. Most of us are not. Have we been? Most of us have been colored people. Right? Huh? I'm right wrong. Huh? So we're already wrong, so we don't even have the power to challenge the jurisdiction of the magistrate who's fraudulently telling you that he's a judge. When he told you he's a judge, the first thing you should ask in a writ in the nature of discovery, because they're accusing you of something, was in that list was a DOAO, delegation of authority order, where he derived his authority and what principle does he operate for. And when they start talking about get a lawyer, Bar Association asks him, is he practicing law from the benches? Is he soliciting for a private corporation, or is he upholding the Constitution upon which he took his oath? Because I got a copy right here that says that's your first obligation. You tell me your obligation to the Bar Association, a private corporation? Is that in the Constitution? Watch him get mad and get green. And if a lawyer come up to you talking about what he's going to represent you, if he don't come with the Constitution of both the state and the federal, he ain't representing you, he's representing the court. Conflict of interest. Judge. Remember the Bar Association of England with a branch in the United States of America? Officer of the court, right? Prosecutor. Remember the Bar Association of England, branch in the United States, etc. Officer of the court. The judge, and them PDs that they keep putting on you, attorneys, etc., esquire. Member of the Bar Association, officer of the court. Does anyone here know what this phrase conflict of interest is? Do you recognize that that's a conflict of interest? It means that's a boys' network. They got a network going on when you walk in there. If you don't know anything about your nationality and your birthright, you can't get to the constitutional law because they just barred you from it, and you didn't do what? You didn't what? What did you didn't do?
You didn't reserve your right.
And you didn't declare from the door, did you? No. And you didn't object, did you?
No.
So you proceed, you're in the jurisdiction, aren't you? And when you're in the jurisdiction, they're also considered that they already have leave. Am I correct? Black's Law Dictionary. Black's Law Dictionary. Show you something else. And keep this in mind, because this is vital in your concepts, because this is how you're going to structure your suits. Now listen to this. In propria persona. Now this is Henry C. Black Law Dictionary, 3rd edition, and you know, those of you know who study, the 3rd edition and the 4th edition is the killers. So it's going to be hard for you to find them. If you can get them, fine. You know, you can get the 5th, 6th, and all that stuff all day long in the bookstores. And you know, if you go on the internet trying to get these, they want to roll you for a couple $100 or whatever. But if you get this 3rd and the 4th edition, now the 4th one is green, I have them both. They are the killers. They got a lot of stuff in them. Educate you. Hold on. Impropriate persona. Now listen to this carefully. Remember that all those who claim law, teach law, learn law, processes. All right, remember, law ain't what you think it is. The issue or the science is jurisprudence. And jurisprudence is that science which treats positive law. Outside of that, they're throwing in negative law. Catch it? That's why they just say law. And you start thinking that that means right. It don't. That means rule or policy. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you better stay in positive law, and the constitutional principle is what keeps you in positive law. So you must think on those principles. That's why Drew Ali said to you, he says, go back to that state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers and their divine and national principles and come back into the constitutional fold. Because outside of this, you're outside of it. They can do any kind of crap to you. You don't have no means to put them in check, because the thing that puts them in check is that Constitution. That's what a DOAO is. A DOAO is a delegation of authority order that's given to, all right, you're Judge Guy. You're Judge Guy of the state of Pearl of Africa right now, the corporation, right? So guess what he has and what you have a right to demand. I say I'm Judge Bolshitsky Dwarf or somebody? Oh, no problem. I like to see your delegation of authority order, because that's the only thing that makes him legitimate. If you don't ask for it, you just waived it. He could be the janitor at Dobbins High School. Dobbins, he can be a Big Mac guy.